I'm Yaz. I'm the founder and chief evangelist of Circonomy. We were formerly known as world's biggest garage sale, and obviously a circular economy enterprise based here in Brisbane, but expanding nationally. And today I do send formal apologies from Swenson, our CEO, who was appointed earlier this month, actually. It's a founder's dream to appoint a CEO in a business, but Ryan's actually on the road today and was unable to join us, but I'm certainly going to do my best to represent both of us. And one of the ironic things is when we first submitted to present at this event, Ryan was my customer. So Partnerships for the Goals, SDG 17, the title of today's presentation, the circular economy marriage between a startup and a stalwart. This session really is all about the story behind how Circonomy, aka world's biggest garage sale, came to be in a marriage with a stalwart, and that being Officeworks. So I guess if I start off, when the world's biggest isn't big enough, this is how we started 9 years ago as world's biggest garage sale, a hobby concept that was really all about how do we make money without asking people for money? How might we solve the problem of all the dormant goods that sat around idle in people's homes, approximately $48 billion worth, which was always reported in the Gumtree report at the time. It was originally called the Secondhand Economy Report. It's now a Circular Economy Report, and they were always really proactive in sharing with us the statistics around the value of products sitting in our homes. And I suppose that's what really World's Biggest Garage Sale set out to initially solve the problem for. And of course, what evolved was Circonomy, the vision 4 years ago that we had as an organization. After being in business officially for about a year as world's biggest garage sale, we knew that we would be bigger. We knew that biggest garage sale wouldn't be a representation of a brand that would really stand true to what we were providing to the market. So as Circonomy was birthed formally this year and slightly delayed with COVID, obviously, it really is focusing on a world where nothing goes to waste, including human potential. And at the highlight, what does Circonomy do? We repair, reuse, repurpose, recycle, refurbish, recommerce. We're really passionate about execution. It really is one of our differentiators and specialties. And ultimately, that means we do things with the things that come our way. And I'm just conscious, I want to try and make sure I can try to see maybe some of you as the event continues today or as we continue to present. And so, if I look back to where it all started and that history, and this was the original sign on the original road back in 2013, asking myself the question, how do we raise money without asking people for money? We felt the donor fatigue back then, but what was really unearthed is this enormous value opportunity. And if I take you through the speedy steps that went along the way, in 2013, we weren't a business. It was very much a hobby. The brainchild of my concept of world's biggest garage sale. Our inaugural event, we raised $15,000 in revenue. The second year, 60, and the third year, almost 90. And by then, I started to wonder, how might we actually do this properly? How might we build a business concept around this, create jobs rather than volunteerism? And I took a year where I was traveling actually with my family in 2016. And when I came back in 2017, I really thought that it was time, almost like a perfect reset, time to jump off the cliff with no parachute and really work out how to build the parachute as we were falling to the ground and without hitting the ground. And effectively, that first event as a company, when World's Biggest Garage Sale was its first event, we really did things the way we did them in the past, but we started to stimulate businesses and other local community organizations to understand how we might be able to better support the supply chain around the circular economy. And while we made $150,000 in a single day, each of those revenue figures are single day revenues, we gave all that money away and we committed to charity. So it was only really in 2018 when we started to make money for good, profit for purpose. We were always unapologetically a social enterprise, a profit for purpose social enterprise, so not a charity, and nor ever wanting to be a charity. We felt that the charity space was very well looked after and managed by existing charities, in particular those more familiar Lifeline, Vinnie's, Salvo stores, RSPCA stores, and other secondhand stores really owned that space. And we didn't want to really, I suppose, encroach on that, because what we were finding was happening with our organization is we were acquiring assets and mobilizing dormant goods that weren't being necessarily put, in the charity bins and donated. So we started to see that real middle market. And in that middle market on the fringes, we also started to see the business fringe product. And that's really when we started to, we went through an investment round with the accelerator at River City Labs, and we received some investment then. And then really ultimately we started to play in that space of a startup. And we found ourselves really in this interesting space, because back then, when I was pitching circular economy, people would say circular what? So it was absolutely obvious that Circonomy, even though it was a registered brand and we thought we'd grow into it in 2018, we parked it on the shelf. We felt that there was already complexities around the business model. We were called world's biggest garage sale. We were dealing with stuff that was generally secondhand or imperfect. I'm a female founder in a non-tech startup. Nothing really made sense, and we were very comfortable that was okay. But layering in Circonomy back then was just another hurdle to jump over, and we didn't want to jump over it. So we stayed really strong and true. And it was in 2019 when we started to have some additional funding come in and new investors in the business, but ultimately started to understand the retail problem with Officeworks coming on board as an anonymity partner in 2019. And it was just before COVID. And what we were doing for Officeworks was really managing and navigating what we call surprise chain. And that was all these imperfect products that might have otherwise ended up in landfill that didn't really get measured or was invisible. And it was a representation of all retailers, but Officeworks was our client at the time. And during 2020, even though we had to shut our warehouse down, we really pivoted and really specifically made effort proactively to stimulate the online marketplaces. And we definitely did the grit, grunt, grind. And that's the startup side of the business that I represent as the founder. But what happened in 2021, as we continued to grow and COVID was evolving and we were all starting to come back out of our homes a bit more, is our partnership with Officeworks had been so successful. We'd actually turned their waste cost center into a profit center, that when we started to raise capital and go out to market for expansion, Officeworks were really keen to be a shareholder. And that's really where I want to kind of take you on that relationship now. I said it earlier, turning surprise chain into supply chain. Surprise chain really is all about the products that, that we acquire and or take ownership of, both in our warehouse and also virtually, can be very variable. We don't place big orders for 10,000, 50,000, even 1,000 products that come from another country offshore in containers to be our own supply chain. Our products are already existing in the ecosystem and generally come to us as a surprise. We don't know they might be here tomorrow. We might know they're coming, but generally there's an element of surprise. They're not perfect. They're variables and they're variants of products that already exist in the market. And you can see from that picture there, that's actually a fit out that we did made from pallets and desktops that would have otherwise ended up in landfill. So our business has always been very startup oriented and all about understanding how we can bring value to the marketplace. I'm hoping that this video audio works, but I'm also conscious that there's a bit of noise going on in the background. So we might just play the video and see if this comes through well. If I can get a thumbs up from someone that the video is working, the audio.
Yes, not the audio. I can see the video. Just a feedback.
Sorry, can you say that again?
I can see the audio, see the video, but no audio to it.
Oh, no audio. Okay. Well, I think this one has subtitles, so I might just continue to play it and just talk you through it. So barring the audio not working there was some subtitles that hopefully came through well for you. But ultimately that video was made about 18 months ago, possibly even 2 years ago. And really the values and the value in grounding both our organization and the organization at Officeworks together was really where we started to see the opportunity unfold. And where we sat as the startup, we never really tried to be something that we weren't. Ambiguity, was a part of the business. Being uncomfortable and also working outside of our comfort zone, a part of our business, and failing fast and failing forward and failing freely, really important aspects. And so when we just sat and in the values and grounded ourselves in that particular truth of our business, we really were able to build immense trust with our customer, and obviously that being Officeworks. At the time of that video, we didn't really know that Officeworks would eventually be an investor in our business. All we knew that we were there to serve that business around circularity. We turned their products that would have otherwise been landfill into 98% of it diverted from waste and only 2% of it going through recycling. So really what we started to see was the value opportunity around that rebuild repair. And while we were still all gluing everything together in this, startup methodology, we knew that it was very much the coming together of like a Titanic and a tugboat. And for us, when we never tried to be what we weren't, it strengthened the relationship. And then all of a sudden we started to see ourselves presented in the Officeworks partnership reports. We won Partner of the Year. And again, this was all pre-investment. And what I joke about as the startup founder, right, that we had coffee, like a date once. We went on a date, we had coffee. Started as a coffee and it emerged into, lunch and then dinner and then overnight and then engagement and eventually marriage. And now we live in holy matrimony. And it followed a very much that methodology of building a new relationship. And that relationship was always communication at the core, trust and transparency at the core. And again, Officeworks became, our partner. And while I openly admit it wasn't planned, eventually at a point in time, we did raise capital and they did come alongside as an investor at that time. We were planning to raise $3 million in 3 weeks. This was back in late this time last year, actually. And in the end, we ended up raising $4 million in 4 weeks, although I do quite comfortably say it took us 4 years to get there. So I don't want to dismiss or dilute how much effort went into getting to this point. And I often get asked, and I said this to Sarah Hunter, how did you get Officeworks? I said, Sarah, that's the biggest question I get. How did you get Officeworks? And the answer she said, Yaz, you didn't get Officeworks. You had a values aligned partnership that has always been consistently oriented to truth and transparency and trust. And that's why Officeworks invested. So certainly now local, national and international investors came on board alongside Officeworks, who now publicly it's published, it's 21% stakeholding in our business. And we're really driving circularity at the core. And I suppose what's exciting is it's a demonstrable success story of how a startup and a stalwart were able to come together. So what do we do now? What even is Circonomy? Well, we've always acted outside of the garage sale brand. And so, some of our key product offerings that might not be as familiar to the market is our commercial and office fit outs, our insurance and salvage solutions, our product quality correction services, where we actually mobilize team members to warehouses and retailers to ensure products are not sitting idle or dormant. We don't always take the product in. We don't always take a product in to repair it or renew it. We often send our team to site so that we can ensure that mobility of products is actually at its highest value to create the most value for the industry. And of course, we do corporate and product partnerships, and that can be variable. At the core and ground of what we do, the system is very stable and structured, but we have a variability of what we offer because each of our clients has different needs. I won't play this video because I don't actually think it has, in fact, I'll just let it play in the background, but I'll mute the audio so I can talk over it. I don't actually think it has subtitles, but one thing that was really interesting is when, as part of our office fit out offering, interestingly, even though Officeworks are an investor and also a partner and surprise chain supplier, they're actually also a customer. And when they were recently fitting out a new office, they actually, instead of taking products off the shelves, which they could easily do, and pull it out of the shelf and furnish their own warehouses, furnish their own, it was a warehouse office. What they did was actually say, well, we want to put our money where our mouth is. We want our business to actually work with your business the same way in which your other buyers and shoppers and customers do. And that meant that, they became a customer. We reupholstered and recovered partitions. You can see there in beautiful Indigenous materials sourced here locally in Brisbane, Neanjan. We rebuilt desks using imperfect products. We utilized chairs that would have otherwise gone to waste, and we reupholstered those chairs as well. It's a really big part of the offering that Circonomy offers is that reupholstery, renew, repurpose, and not letting those products go to landfill. And of course, because Officeworks are a supplier to us, naturally we have an abundance of office equipment that we do put into corporate offices, small and large, as part of fit outs with either our architect and design partners or directly in this case, as we did with Officeworks. And what we love about this is that it really brings to life the circular economy in action. This is not just about ticking a box. This is active, visible, physically mobile products that are transforming the conversations. And as we get towards, the end, and I want to be able to open up for questions, I can see there's some chats in there. Oh yes, video is gone. I could hear the presenter. I want to be able to open questions up. Really the way we summarize it, and I suppose as a founder, your job is always to try to synthesize complexity into simple, bite-sized chunks of execution. And in the Partnerships for Action, we always have called us agility plus stability. So this is a startup and a stalwart. Agility and stability equals capability. And what that wonderful formula does is it just demonstrates that together everyone achieves more. Like when we bring the group together, when we bring the two people together, each has a specialty. Neither can do it on their own. And what we can do together, that 1 + 1 is 3, is actually have a greater impact around the capability. And one of the other formulas that we use as well that really does demonstrate that it doesn't need to have this perfectly primed and proactively presented process up front. For us, it's really those two simple things you can see on screen there, which is effort plus execution equals evolution. So we didn't know 4 years ago that Officeworks would invest and that we would be in this, marriage. We didn't know that we would be working with, 7, 8, a dozen other partners across the country. We always had a vision that we would be taking it in this direction, but you just don't know that at that period of time in the early phases of circular economy becoming a more palatable term in this country. Like it was always like Ellen MacArthur existed, the foundation was, sending out global messages. There was momentum in Europe and the USA and the UK, but in Australia, we were a little bit behind. We were still scratching our heads, as I said. And so really trying to understand, effort and execution. If we just make effort every day, we execute every day, we will eventually evolve. And today, we find ourselves right smack bang in the middle of the circular economy. Our business is obviously called Circonomy, but we've been doing what we're doing for a number of years, that we're now really passionate about sharing that knowledge so that others can do their own circular economy projects, pilots and processes much more efficiently than we've had to, and there's other early adopters along the way. One actually really interesting statistic I find wonderful is, I remember when we used to, tag or hashtag or promote circular economy on any of the channels, it was really rare. And what we see now is the number of LinkedIn jobs I'm seeing pop up every day with circular economy written in the job description. The energy is just electric. It's so exciting for our industry. And it's just wonderful to see such quality talent coming into this space. You could go on the internet and see all these great things about our business. And we've won lots of awards for a long time. And I suppose a part of that is because not a lot of people were doing what we were doing or doing circular economy back, in the early years, as I suppose unapologetically in your face as we were. We were really loud and proud about what we were doing because we were trying to gain momentum and pick up friends along the way when it was pretty lonely and dismal in the beginning. But now what we want to continue to see is this show reel of awesome companies stepping up and standing out around circularity. But we also want to maintain that real. And, on the surface, while it might look impressive, none of this evolves or comes to life without a lot of real, and that is including a lot of difficulties and disasters along the way. And again, what's been wonderful about our relationship with someone like Officeworks is that we have never tried to put that under the rug, hide it, throw it in the closet, make sure that it's under the radar. In fact, the opposite, we're really upfront about the fact that we're not great at a lot of things, and that for our true love story to come together like we have with Officeworks, and that stalwart coming together with a startup, which is quite risky and scary, and a lot of businesses kind of probably wouldn't have lent into it as much. It's a real credit to Ryan and his team that, I joke that love is the next disruptor in business. I probably don't joke about it too much, actually. I'm quite serious about it. When Garage Sale was our brand and our logo was a love heart, it's really easy to say that love is at the core of what we do. And by what I mean by that, so I don't scare you away with this, woo-woo love written on the screen there, is we really did connect as people. Like we came together as people trying to solve a problem that's bigger than any person. And there were egos put to the side. There were, no assumptions on what we might be able to build together. There was trust, transparency, words that have feelings and meaning and impact, like love and like connection. And we really did ensure that we could understand each other's strengths and preferences around how we might be able to bring together a relationship where, being guided by the Sustainable Development Goals, being guided by SDG 17 in particular, partnerships for the goals, how might we really shape and bring to life something that could be ultimately a success for the ecosystem? And while I can't speak for Ryan, I can certainly represent our relationship of 3.5 years in his role at Officeworks. He really was the entrepreneur internally at Officeworks, the one that was guiding it internally. And I don't have full awareness of who is on the line today in terms other than your names of your roles, but whether it's government, whether you're an entrepreneur in a business, whether it's government or a business, or you're an entrepreneur out on the fringes of your own business, being an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur is really difficult. There are, every day we could probably turn away and go find something easier to do. But I really feel that as a representative of the startup world, that it really is worth it. It's worth the wait. It's worth the pain, especially when you know that you're actually shifting and shaping an entire system design. And that's what I'm so excited about in terms of this particular conference and the people that are presenting and those that present in this year and into the future, is we really are the shapeshifters and game changers of a new way of doing business. And circular economy as a whole has a really strong role to play in building the economy of the future, not because of, any one particular marker, but I'm seeing the energy, and I can only speak for myself, but the energy of the people, the humans, the actual leaders in the circular economy, at every business, in every government department, in every startup and every stalwart that I've seen, there seems to be this bondedness between the way in which we lead, and maybe it's the values that we share. Maybe it's the desire to do something bigger than ourselves. But that trend that I'm feeling and seeing around this whole ecosystem, this really is a significant movement that's going to make a difference, and not just make money for businesses, but actually make a difference and drive that change. And so I'm super proud to stand alongside everybody in our ecosystem and openly say, you know, we're open for business, not so that we can be the McMansion giant business that gobbles up all the opportunities, but actually co-opetition is one of our strong passion areas. And we work with a number of smaller businesses now who are already embarking on their own circular economy projects at smaller scale. And Circonomy is a huge advocate for bringing together small and big. I mean, we've experienced that ourselves. And now as a business, we have a responsibility to ensure that we're not trying to create our own internal offering that duplicates something that's already on offer well in the market. We're really, you know, passionate about continuing the partnerships for the goals and working with partners out there in the circular economy that's going to ensure that 1 + 1 is 3 for our enterprises. And I suppose, you know, I would wrap up by saying, you know, be fearlessly authentic. I have found that, you know, while I wanted to walk away from the business a number of times, the thought of a job that's comfortable, that provides less challenge, and is not as messy and difficult, it's a big temptation. It really is. And, you know, what has probably kept me true to me is not ever compromising on my own authentic and vulnerable values, the way that I want to be as a leader, which is not trying to pretend that I can do everything. And when I raised capital, the first thing I said to my board was, oh my God, I don't want to be the CEO of the business as it scales. Please set me free and let me do a different role in the company. And, you know, I know my strengths, and I'm excellent at business relationships and genuinely being that evangelist of the circular economy for bigger than my own business, but for our whole ecosystem. And I never did want to be the CEO of the business as it gets to the point of now where we're systemizing and driving growth nationally. And when you can bravely be you and speak your truth, you really, while it's painful or difficult and challenging at the time, it's probably a good marker that you're making the right decision, because, you know, if it doesn't hurt, you're probably not heading in the right direction. And I would just encourage all of us out there that are working in the circular economy that when it does hurt, and it should, and it will, and it could, but lean on each other. That has absolutely got me through. The number of friends I've made through the circular economy over the last 5 years have been transformational, not just for systems, but also for relationships. And, you know, there's a lot of us out there doing hard work, and we definitely share strong values that want to create the circular economy as BAU for the future way in which we manufacture, produce, recover, and re-commerce products, materials, and resources across all industries, whether it's food, hard waste, construction, retail, or anything else in between. So, you know, while our vertical markets might be different, ultimately our foundations are the same. And I would absolutely encourage our ecosystem to stick together during these next few years, because it's going to be tough, but it's going to be a lot of fun as well. And it absolutely will be a roller coaster ride. So I'll wrap up there, and my details are on the screen. I share them, you know, with pride, that you absolutely can reach out to me and have conversations and ask all the hard questions, and, you know, even vent and connect, because I know that I've done that significantly over the years and wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all the people whose shoulders that I was able to stand on along the way. And selfishly, you know, I'd love to connect to you so that I can equally learn from you and your teams with what you're doing to transform and innovate for a more circular economy. So I'll leave it there. I know we've got about 15 minutes or so. I'd love to know if there's any questions. Yes, would love to join up in groups. Yes, please, James, let's join up. Does anyone else have any questions that, you know, take your mic off? You want to ask some live questions today? Don't be shy.
G'day, yes. I'm so sorry I've just been driving, but
That's all right.
fascinating presentation. I'd love to know about your governance arrangements and how you established your board, and, you know, how did you find people who got what you were trying to do all along?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Carrie. So initially when I became a founder, the biggest question I was asking myself was, are we a charity or are we not a charity? And we really sat very unapologetically in the social enterprise space, which was super hard. So when you're business, you're either there to make money or there to be a charity. And there wasn't an in-between back then 5 years ago. And so we kind of started to find a bit of a tribe of people who felt profit for purpose could and is the way of doing business. And they were really the early adopters. And I guess if I'm to be completely honest, the people I met first up when I was pitching and saying all these things years ago, they almost find you rather than you find them. And so I would project, and you can see I'm wearing my shirt today, but it used to be the big red love heart. I would sit in the front row at all the events, ask all the questions, tweet all the things, because I was trying to, with no money, get my brand known. And then people were started to be attracted to what we're doing or inquisitive. And it was a real attract and detract strategy. People were very quickly attracted or very quickly detracted by me as a founder, by the business. And a lot of people didn't understand us. And so the people today, some who sit on my board, are some of those original OGs who really were fans at the beginning, or maybe puzzled and watched you along the way, and you continue to execute, you build that trust. So from a governance perspective, when it came time to build the board, I actually never put a board in place until we were raising capital this round. And the reason for that is I felt that a board would slow us down too early. And I don't regret that. I think we could have put in a more formal advisory board earlier, and it might have helped us avoid some of the hurdles along the way that we avoided between not having a board and having a board. It's like we didn't take a stepping stone. We went on one side of the chasm to the other. And we didn't really have a drawbridge or that rickety bridge linking the two. So there were definitely some stumbles and falls and bruises and cuts and challenges and, you know, falling in the rapids and climbing back up the hill a few times along the way. But again, it came down to people, and you can see there, people, planet, purpose. The people that I trust, the people around me, and those few that came on board early and believed early are really those that helped drive the governance and the formalities. But I mean, Officeworks sit on my board now as a 21% shareholder. They are, it's a requirement of my constitution that they, or the shareholders agreement, that they sit on the board. And we also had another one of our newest investors ask for a board seat, and we were strategically really comfortable with the smaller board. But when the offer came to have another investor have a seat at the table of the board, we were super excited about that. Plus, at the time, we did have an all-female board. And while I'm all for diversity, changing the narrative of all the men around the table, I'm also not a fan of all the women around the table either. So it was nice to have 2 male investors come on the board, and it just we've now got 5 people on the board, and it's 3 women, 2 men. And I think it's a good representation for the type of business that we're in. I think it'll be an evolving board as well, and our board believe and feel that themselves. Like, the business is still quite immature, I suppose, in its journey. And in a year or 2 from now, we may need different leaders around the boardroom table, but we've got our eyes wide open for that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Love your work.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? Oh, inspiring story. Thank you for sharing. Where do you see the business going in the next 5 to 10 years? What is your blue sky vision? Oh, I love that question. Thank you, Magdalena. Look, I think I believe in really crazy, impossible, and, you know, knowing that Ryan's not on the call to give his commentary, but I've always said that we really should work ourselves out of a job. If we do our job really well and we capture the data and we understand the methodologies and we can minimize the movement of physical assets and understand from a data orientation how to keep products and materials in situ or close to the supply chain and advanced manufacturing of where those materials will be resource recovered in the future, I'd really like to see the logistical miles improved of how things move around this country in particular. And I'd also like to see the transparency and de-aggregation of products at the design phase, products being designed to be disassembled up front, and therefore less products should come to organisations like mine. But where organisations like mine come into play is that orientation around the support through partnerships, through mobilisation of people, and leaving physical products in situ as much as possible, so that we are not just shifting a logistical problem around the country. I also feel that Circonomy products will actually be sold in retail stores. So why it doesn't really make sense that all the big players just send all their products to one place and us sell them on a different marketplace. I've always had this big audacious goal of, well, if we can repair products at a warehouse and relabel and get products readied at a warehouse, why would Officeworks not have a Circonomy product sold on their shelves in their stores, rather than us try to drive customers to a whole new platform? So I feel like we're going to see the circular economy have very much a multifaceted integration of proactive partnerships and collaboration and co-opetition, because I think we'll all start to see and realize more and more that replicating business models where we're all virtually doing the same thing but competing for the same customer is just making it harder from a time and materials perspective, and actually bringing brains trust together will see more synergy in the way in which we work together. And so for me as the founder, my job is I feel like my responsibility is to maintain the heart of our organization, and not in any way at all to misrepresent Ryan, because he's got, you know, one of the biggest hearts you'd ever see in the retail leadership sector. But he and I are very passionate about maintaining and retaining the people, planet, purpose enterprise and that real impact orientation of our business. It's really easy for all of us circular economy enterprises to commercialize and be the future mansion giants of the ecosystem. But we really need to stay true to the goals of why we're all here and let the SDGs guide us in our decision-making processes, so that we're not being tempted by the attractiveness of, you know, making a ton of money in our, and well, don't get me wrong, we've got to make money and be a sustainable business, but nobody needs to be, you know, one of 20 people that own 80% of the wealth of the world. Like that's not the vision of our business. We absolutely want everybody to come along for the journey, and collaboration and co-opetition are big parts of our future vision. But we definitely want to design change and shift the way we see things, like and do and demonstrate impossible. And so, you know, that's the stuff we want to be a part of. And that's, as an innovator, that's why I can't be the CEO, because I'm so passionate to try new things with businesses. So, you know, we're open for business to take risks, and that's really my role. I get to be the Captain Risky around here, which is pretty cool. Yes, of course, you can understand to reach out, and definitely, and again, my details are on the screen on purpose, so that, you know, I think that we don't have egos in our vertical market. Like our egos are left at the door. I love the little acronym I use, the acrostic poem, LEAD, LEAD, is leave ego at door. And I really am passionate about that. I'm quite bullish and upfront and direct and a strong communicator, and they're all the things I own about myself. There's plenty of blind spots as well, but what I love is that I feel like it's important that we project a, you know, we, us, our. That's how we think around here. We, us, our, not me, my, I. So while our businesses might be completely different, the systems or the orientation of how we're solving our problems are quite the same. And I feel that that's one of the secret sources for the circular economy, is actually the people coming together to rant and question and ask the tough things, and also lean on each other when it is tough, because it's a lonely road out there, building and creating a new way of doing things. And, you know, many people will argue, why would we do things differently? Because it's, you know, we're making all this money and our systems are working and we've got flow. But if we don't have leaders like us out there challenging the status quo, nothing changes if nothing changes. So we have to be each other's, I suppose, change support crew. And I'm definitely seen that over the last 5 years as someone playing in the circular economy space. It's been a bonus, actually, I have to admit, an unexpected bonus of being in business. Now, I know I'm conscious of time. We've got a few more minutes. Does anyone have any final questions before we wrap it up so you guys can get on to your next sessions? No? All right, well, we might wrap it up there. You've got my details, all my, yes, definitely contribute to the community. Yes, James, we all want to do that. So look, please do reach out, drop me an email. I respond to all my own emails. I might not be instantaneous, but absolutely my mobile's there. You can text me. And if you do have any questions, or if there's any thoughts or something after today that you want to ask, please do let me know. I know Ryan's based in Melbourne, just so you know. So we are expanding nationally. We'll have team members in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. And we'll continue to grow, and Circonomy is here to support the ecosystem. So please do reach out. And if there's anything we can ever do to help, we will absolutely stand beside you. And if we want to do this, we've got to do it together. Thank you, everyone. I'm conscious and cautious of time, so I don't want to hold you up for your next session. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Bye-bye.